stories that shape your world. Right now, a massive crisis is brewing in the global semiconductor industry. The US is tightening the screws on South Korea's chip giants, Samsung and SK Hynix, in a move that could cripple the global phone supply chain. South Korea is pleading with the Trump administration to back off, but will it work? Stay with us until the end to find out if your next smartphone could be at risk, and what this means for the future of tech. This is a game changer you need to know about. The semiconductor industry powers everything from your phone to AI systems and electric vehicles. But a new US policy could bring production to a screeching halt, sending shockwaves through the global economy. Samsung and SK Hynix, South Korea's tech titans, are in a panic as the US threatens to revoke critical authorizations for their China-based factories. This could disrupt the supply of memory chips critical for smartphones, laptops, and more. What's driving this high-stakes tech war? And could it leave you without a phone? Let's dive in. If you're as hooked on tech news as we are, hit that like button, subscribe to Revo now, and share this video with your friends. This story is huge, and you'll want to stay in the loop. Don't forget to ring the bell for updates on the latest tech developments. Now, let's break down this crisis and what it means for you. Samsung and SK Hynix are the world's top producers of DRAM and NAND flash memory chips, which are essential for smartphones, computers, and AI systems. Together, they control nearly 70% of the global DRAM market and 50% of the NAND flash market. But their massive operations in China, where Samsung produces 40% of its NAND chips and SK Hynix makes 40–50% of its DRAM, are under threat. The US Department of Commerce is considering revoking authorizations that allow these companies to use American technology in their China factories, a move that could grind production to a halt. Why is this happening? It's all part of the escalating US-China tech war. The US is worried that advanced chips made in China could end up in the hands of Chinese tech firms or even military applications, posing a national security risk. In June 2025, reports surfaced that the US is planning to tighten export controls on companies like Samsung, SK Hynix, and TSMC, making it harder for them to access US equipment and technology in China. South Korea is now in a desperate scramble to protect its chip giants, with officials reportedly urging the Trump administration to reconsider. Let's talk about the stakes. Samsung and SK Hynix's China facilities are critical to the global tech supply chain. Samsung's Xi'an plant and SK Hynix's Wuxi and Dalian factories produce a huge chunk of the world's memory chips. If these operations are disrupted, it could lead to massive shortages of smartphones, laptops, and other devices. Prices could skyrocket, and production delays could hit major brands like Apple, Xiaomi, and Oppo hard. For consumers, this could mean waiting months for a new phone or paying a premium for limited stock. And it's not just phones. Think gaming consoles, smart TVs, and even electric cars. This isn't the first time South Korean chipmakers have been caught in the US-China crossfire. In 2022, the US imposed sweeping restrictions on chipmaking equipment exports to China, but Samsung and SK Hynix secured one-year waivers to keep their operations running. Those waivers were later made indefinite, providing some stability. But now, with the Trump administration taking a hardline stance, those authorizations are at risk again. South Korea's government is pushing back, warning that restrictions could harm US companies and consumers as well. South Korea's semiconductor industry is a global powerhouse, but it's heavily reliant on China for manufacturing. Samsung's Xi'an facility produces 40% of its NAND flash chips, while SK Hynix's Wuxi plant accounts for nearly half of its DRAM output. These facilities depend on US-made equipment and software to produce advanced chips. If the US pulls the plug, the impact could be catastrophic. Experts warn that a sudden halt could lead to a semiconductor crisis, with ripple effects across industries. But there's another side to this story. Could this push China to become a chip-making superpower? China's not standing still. Companies like SMIC and tsmc are pouring billions into domestic chip production, aiming to reduce reliance on foreign tech. In 2023, China banned US-based Micron's chips from critical infrastructure, creating opportunities for Samsung and SK Hynix to fill the gap. But the US urged South Korea not to take advantage of the ban, putting the companies in a tough spot. Now, with tighter restrictions looming, China could accelerate its push for self-sufficiency, potentially challenging South Korea's dominance in the memory chip market. South Korea is fighting back. President Lee Jae-myung has reportedly reached out to the Trump administration, emphasizing the importance of Samsung and SK Hynix to the global economy. The country's semiconductor industry supports millions of jobs and generates billions in revenue. A hit to these companies could hurt South Korea's economy and its position as a tech leader. But the Trump administration's focus on America First policies and national security concerns could make negotiations tricky. Posts on X suggest South Korea is considering delaying a broader US trade deal to protect its chipmakers. So, what's next? If the US moves forward with these restrictions, Samsung and SK Hynix could face a tough choice: scale back their China operations or invest heavily in alternative locations like the US or South Korea. Samsung is already pumping $37 billion into new factories in Texas, and SK Hynix is building a $3.87 billion packaging plant in Indiana. These moves could help offset losses, but relocating production is costly and time-consuming. Meanwhile, consumers could face higher prices and longer wait times for devices. Let's talk about the consumer impact. Memory chips are in everything: your phone, your laptop, your car. A disruption in Samsung and SK Hynix's supply chains could drive up costs across the board. For example, a high-end smartphone that costs $1,000 today could jump to $1,200 or more. Budget brands like Samsung's A series or Xiaomi's Redmi could become harder to find. And it's not just phones. Laptops, gaming consoles, and even smart appliances could be affected. The last major chip shortage in 2021 caused months-long delays for products like the PlayStation 5. Could we be headed for a repeat? Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Could this really cripple the phone supply? The short answer is yes, but it's not all doom and gloom. Samsung and SK Hynix are resilient, with massive R&D budgets and global operations. They're already exploring ways to reduce their reliance on China, like SK Hynix's $90 billion plan to build the world's largest chip fab in Yongin, South Korea, by 2046. But these projects take years, and in the meantime, the industry could face serious turbulence. There's also the question of China's response. Beijing has been investing heavily in its semiconductor industry, with companies like Huawei and SMIC working on advanced memory chips. If US restrictions force Samsung and SK Hynix out of China, Chinese firms could step up to fill the void. This could shift the balance of power in the tech world, with China gaining ground in the race for AI and 5G dominance. The Trump administration's stance is clear. National security comes first. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has signaled a tough approach, saying he'll review all chip subsidy deals to ensure they align with US interests. This could mean cuts to the $4.74 billion and $450 million in CHIPS Act funding promised to Samsung and SK Hynix for their U.S. projects. South Korea's chipmakers are racing to lock in these subsidies before any changes are made, but the clock is ticking. South Korea's diplomatic efforts are in full swing. The country's leaders are pushing for exemptions, arguing that restrictions on Samsung and SK Hynix could harm US companies like Nvidia and Apple, which rely on their chips. Posts on X indicate that South Korea might delay broader trade talks to pressure the US into softening its stance. But with Trump's America First agenda in play, it's unclear how much leverage Seoul has. The outcome of these negotiations could shape the tech industry for years to come. Here's the big picture. This isn't just about chips. It's about the future of technology, global trade, and power. If Samsung and SK Hynix lose access to US technology in China, the ripple effects could hit every corner of the tech world. But there's hope. These companies are innovators, and they're already diversifying their supply chains. Samsung's Texas factories and SK Hynix's Indiana plant are steps toward a more resilient future. The question is whether they can move fast enough to avoid a crisis. We want to hear from you. What do you think about this chip war drama? Will it jack up phone prices, or will Samsung and SK Hynix find a way out? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know what tech topics you want to see next. AI chip breakthroughs, 6G developments, or maybe the rise of Chinese tech giants. Hit like, share, and subscribe to join the RevoNow community and stay ahead of the tech curve. Let's talk about what's next. The US-China tech war is heating up, and South Korea's chipmakers are caught in the middle. If the US follows through on its threat, we could see a major shakeup in the global tech market. But Samsung and SK Hynix aren't going down without a fight. Their investments in AI chips like SK Hynix's HBM3E for Nvidia show they're ready to compete, and with South Korea's government backing them, they've got a fighting chance. Thanks for watching, RevoNow fam. This chip war could change the way we live, work, and play. Will your next phone cost a fortune, or will South Korea's tech giants save the day? Stay tuned to RevoNow for the latest updates. Comment below with your predictions, and tell us what you want to see next. Maybe a deep dive into AI chip tech or the impact of US tariffs on your wallet. Like, share, and subscribe to keep up with the tech revolution. This is RevoNow, signing off. Stay curious, stay connected, and we'll see you in the next one.
Subscribe to RevoNow and join our vibrant community of forward thinkers, change makers, and revolutionaries.